Anime games suck. Or at least, most of them do. And when I say anime games, I don't mean games that merely have an anime art style, like Persona does for example, but actual anime-based video games. But why do I think that? Well, the realization came to me when I remembered a game from my childhood that I absolutely loved. One Piece Unlimited Cruise 1 and 2. In fact, I have such fond memories of this game that I recently borrowed a Wii from a friend just to play it again. And after playing it for the past week or so, I have to say, it's still as amazing as I remember it being. Now, some of you might be confused and are probably wondering, why have I never heard of this game if it's so great? Well, I think that's partly because the game was only released for the Nintendo Wii and 3DS. For whatever fucking reason. And to my surprise, while researching for this video, I found that many great anime games were released exclusively for one console. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Naruto Rise of a Ninja and The Broken Bond. But back to One Piece. This game is just packed with so many unique elements that make it stand out from other One Piece games. And really, anime games in general. But before we dive into what makes this old game so good, let's discuss what makes a good anime game in general. Because to understand why something is bad, we first need to establish what would make it good, right? Let me ask you a question. What do you expect from a good anime game? Aside from the things we expect from every type of video game, such as a balanced difficulty, responsive controls and up-to-date high-quality graphics, I reckon most of you would say that a good anime game specifically needs to feature engaging gameplay, coupled with a good battling system, innovation and creativity, while of course also being faithful to the source material, and maybe even replayability, because let's be honest, most anime games are played once and then forgotten. Like the school lunch you forgot to take out of your backpack before summer break. And yes, while all of these aspects are crucial for a good anime game, there is one thing I believe stands above the rest, and that is immersion. A well-made anime game, or any game adaptation of a non-gaming franchise, should make you feel like you are a part of the world you fell in love with while watching the series or reading the book. The characters from your favorite show should take you by the hand and pull you into their world, as if you are truly a part of their group. But despite their potential, most anime games fall short due to poor game design, repetitive storytelling, and a lack of innovation. Back when I was still in school, being into anime and manga often meant signing up for a lifetime of teasing from classmates. Thankfully, with platforms like TikTok and Netflix popularizing these storytelling mediums here in the West, the roles have slowly but surely reversed to the point where one could even argue that anime and manga are now part of the mainstream, like movies and books. However, while anime and manga are both gaining popularity, it feels like their game adaptations are becoming increasingly more soulless and of poorer quality. But was that always the case? In 1980 Japan, when the arcade boom was at its all-time peak, with titles like Space Invaders and Pac-Man, Taito Corporation released a game which was quite possibly the first anime video game ever made, Lupin III. 1980. I mean, the sprite work isn't super refined, so without the game title and the cutscenes between the levels, which, by the way, give almost no context to the story whatsoever, you probably couldn't even tell that you were playing a Lupin III anime game. But you were playing a Lupin III anime game. In the game you're obviously playing as, well, Lupin III, a master thief who makes his living by stealing valuable things out of banks or museums. The only objective of the game is to steal money from the top of the screen and put it into your bank account at the bottom. So gameplay-wise, not the most demanding anime game, but we're getting there. And that's basically what anime games were for the next few years. 8-bit games with basic and undefined sprite work, failing to establish a visual connection to the anime origins, with monotonous gameplay and a playtime of about 20 minutes. Only fans deeply familiar with the anime series could identify these games' true nature, recognizing them as anime game adaptations. That was until a few years later, in the late 80s and 90s, the stars aligned for the anime video game industry. This era saw the golden age of anime, with series like Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon and Neon Genesis Evangelion capturing the attention of audiences worldwide. Simultaneously, the gaming console boom brought systems like the NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and later the PlayStation into homes, revolutionizing home entertainment. Anime-based games grew more sophisticated, especially with RPGs like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy gaining popularity. As both anime and the gaming industry experienced extraordinary growth, they converged to create some of the best anime video games, which I am sure many of us fondly remember from our childhoods. With each new console generation and advancement in technology, anime games improved in game design, graphics, and overall quality. Up until the late 2000s and early 2010s, everything was going smoothly. There were no weird viruses going around the world, wars weren't erupting every few months, and anime games were at their all-time peak. Then everything changed when the mobile gaming industry attacked. With the rise of the mobile industry, smartphones became omnipresent and many game developers shifted towards mobile platforms. While some mobile games were well designed, most of them were hastily produced, resulting in simplistic gameplay, lower production values, and a heavy reliance on microtransactions. The impact of this shift was particularly damaging to the anime gaming industry. One of the most notorious systems to emerge from this era was the gacha system. Now you might be wondering, Andream, what the hell even is a gacha system? Let me explain it by using a game many of you are likely familiar with, or have at least heard of: Genshin Impact. The reason why I will demonstrate the gacha system based on this game in particular is that I have played this game, and I have played it since the release of it on September 28th, 2020, up until the beginning of this year where I finally decided to free my life from this terrible game. I am not kidding, I have spent several hundreds of hours on this accursed game, grinding to satisfy my gacha addiction, just to be left with a C6 Kiki and Diluc. All jokes aside, Genshin Impact is a pretty good game considering it offers an open world fantasy RPG with a great story, lore, and exceptional music for free. I managed to obtain nearly every good character in the game without needing to spend money. So if you don't have the money to buy expensive games or the audacity to pirate them, and you aren't super put off by the gacha system, which I am about to present to you in a minute, you might consider playing it. Okay, he's gone. If you do choose to install the game, please be cautious as it can be highly addictive and can rob you of your time if you aren't careful. Hashtag no ad. Okay, now for you to understand the gacha system in Genshin Impact, you'll first need to understand a few things about the game's wishing system. In the game, you start with a few free characters, but the majority are locked behind the so-called wishing system. Suppose a character you've been having an eye on shows up on a banner. To pull them, you'll need Intertwined Fate, an in-game currency obtainable through hours of grinding. For free! It takes hours of grinding, but it's technically free! $0 spent. However, there's a catch. To have a chance at pulling that character, you'll likely need to wish for that specific character about 90 times. Although it is possible that you might get lucky earlier and pull the character below the 90 wish pity, which is guaranteed to be a 5-star character, the odds are extremely low, so expect spending around 90 wishes. Accordingly, you'll need 90 Intertwined Fates. Okay, great! I have 90 Intertwined Fates, so now I can pull my favorite character. No, wait. It isn't guaranteed that you summon your desired character at the 90 wish pity. You see, the chances between getting the character featured on the banner and getting another character from the standard banner are 50-50. I've lost this coin toss to Kiki, Diluc, and Jean more times than I care to admit. But don't despair. After losing the 50-50, if you continue to pull for the character another 90 times, the next pity is guaranteed to deliver the character featured on the banner. Great! That means I only need to farm 180 fates and then I can get a character I want guaranteed. Technically, yes. However, farming those 180 fates is incredibly tedious. To buy them, you use Primo Gems, another in-game currency earned from missions, events, and exploration. Early on, the game showers you with Primo Gems, but as the content thins out, the grind intensifies. I've spent countless hours on daily missions, quests, events, and exploring, scrapping together maybe 100 Primo Gems a day. Just to put it in perspective, one Intertwined Fate costs 160 Primo Gems. So to secure 180 fates for your guaranteed character, you need a daunting 28,800 Primo Gems. You can do the math, it's hefty. Okay, that does sound very grindy, but as long as I get my character, I have no problem farming those Primo Gems. And here comes the next problem. You don't have infinite time to farm for the character, because the character banner rotates every 3 weeks. Which means if you don't manage to pull the character you want in time before the banner rotates, you'll have to wait a whole ass year for that character to appear again. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And this is where the true nature of the gacha system emerges. Let's say you just got Kazuha, a character you've been wanting for months. The next day, the banner resets and Nahida arrives, another long-awaited character. But because you spent all your Primo Gems on Kazuha, you're broke.
You're broke! You're fucking poor!
Depending on where you are in the game, farming another 180 fates in such a short amount of time might be impossible. So what most people feel forced to do if they don't want to wait another year like I did when I couldn't pull for Nahida, they reach for their bank card and spend hundreds of dollars, yes, it's that expensive, to buy Primo Gems. And do you know what the best part is? It doesn't end there! Because every 5-star character comes with their own signature weapon available on the weapon banner. Remember the 50% chance of getting the character you want after 90 wishes and the 100% guarantee after 180 wishes? The weapon banner has the same concept but worse. Here you can lose the 50-50 twice. So to guarantee a 5-star weapon that complements your new 5-star character, you might end up spending up to 270 intertwined fates, which equals 43,200 Primo Gems. Quick disclaimer here, as I said before, I haven't played Genshin Impact in quite a while, and apparently MiHoYo chose to change the number of times you can lose the 50-50 on a weapon banner from 2 to 1. So I guess it's not that unfair anymore. I just wanted to throw that in here before people say that I'm spreading misinformation. I must admit, it's a bit ironic that I'm ranting about the system after calling Genshin Impact a great game. But to be really honest with you, you don't need every good 5-star character to clear the hardest content in the game. 1 or 2 are sufficient. And you certainly don't need 5-star weapons, as the game provides plenty of good 4-star weapons. That's why I never pulled on the weapon banner, and neither should you if you are a free-to-play player. And if you don't want to lose your next 50-50 in Genshin Impact, you should subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you don't play gacha games, you should still subscribe to my YouTube channel. Because I make good videos. So to put it in a nutshell, a gacha system is a type of microtransaction in video games where players spend in-game currency or real money to obtain random rewards. This system is similar to gambling, as players often do not know what they will receive until after the purchase. And almost every anime mobile game has this darn system, nearly 95% of them. It makes sense economically. Mobile games like One Piece Treasure Cruise are easy and cheap to program and can be highly addictive. And with a gacha system integrated, developers can make a lot of money with minimal effort, which is the primary goal for anime games anyway. Because what you have to understand about the anime and manga industry is that anime are almost always a loss-making, or at best a low-profit business. Producing even a single episode can cost between 100 and 300,000 USD, with many people watching them on pirated sites, bypassing subscription services like Crunchyroll or Netflix. And even fewer people buy Blu-rays, which are typically priced high. But if anime don't even cover production costs most of the time, what's the point in producing them? Well, in reality, anime serve as the advertisements for the manga they are based on, as well as the merchandise and other media like video games and figurines that generate most of the profits. And anime video games are basically the same. They are not made with the goal to be standalone masterpieces. Instead, the objective of most of these games is to make a lot of money while trying to keep the production costs as low as possible. But compared with most anime, which even while being only advertisement for their manga most of the time still feel like high quality standalone projects, anime video games most of the time just feel like soulless merchandise. Maybe it's because games need a higher budget and more time by default, I don't know. But if they could make a good anime game with enough time, budget and the right people, why don't they do it? I don't know, maybe it's because these games are made to milk the franchise, since fans will buy them anyway. You have to ask yourself and be really honest about it. If you think about your favorite anime games, would you still play them if they weren't about your favorite anime? Because in my opinion, anime games are like fashion brands. They are only bought because of the name or reputation. Another reason for the decline in the quality of anime games is the business strategy quantity over quality. The success of major anime series led to a rush of licensed games. Developers often release games to coincide with anime seasons or movie releases, often at the expense of quality. These games are frequently developed on tight schedules, resulting in rushed and unpolished products. For example, let's take a look at the Demon Slayer game Hinokami Chronicles, which was released on the 13th of October 2021. I would estimate that the game was in development for no more than 2 years at most. Why do I think that? Well, take a look at the volume sales chart for the Demon Slayer manga. As you can see, before the anime aired, the manga was performing rather poorly because, as I stated earlier, anime are the biggest and most effective advertisement for the manga. Very rarely is it the case that the manga performs well before its anime adaptation has aired. One such rare example would be Chainsaw Man, which already performed really well before the release of the anime. And since no one knew about Demon Slayer before the glorious anime adaptation, I would say that the development of the game could not have started until the time of the anime's release at the earliest. Otherwise, no one would have bought the game. Now, look at what happened after the anime aired, especially between the release of episode 19 of the anime, which was the highlight episode where Tanjiro fought against Rui, and the release of the movie Infinity Train. The manga sales skyrocketed. So I think that the development of the game probably started during this time period. Let's just hypothetically say it began on the release day of episode 19, which was the 10th of August 2019. That leaves us with a development time of about 2 years. 2 years is about the time you would need to develop a somewhat decent indie or mobile game, and it is far too little time for a fully fledged anime game that was released on 9th generation consoles like the PlayStation 5. But you know what? Taking as little time as possible to get the game on the market as quickly as they could was the right choice, at least from an economical point of view. But why? Wouldn't a game that had been better with more time and money invested also have made more money in return? Okay, let's say they would have taken 5 years to make an absolute masterpiece of a game, something like Sekiro, but with Demon Slayer. That would have made the release date the 13th of October 2024. Remember what I told you about the Demon Slayer manga sales? By the release of the game on 13th of October 2021, the manga had over 150 million copies in circulation, including digital versions, making it one of the best-selling manga series of all time. Guess how many sales Demon Slayer had on the 13th of October 2024, which is our hypothetical release date for the game a whopping 3 years later, still 150 million. So if the game would have come out on that date, very few people would have actually bought it, making the time and money invested a failure. So economically, it absolutely makes sense to get this game out as fast as possible, so that it coincides with the hype Demon Slayer had at the time. And this tight release schedule paired with a limited budget leads to other major problems many of you are probably familiar with. Poor game design, repetitive storytelling, and a lack of innovation. Titles often fail to distinguish themselves from previous releases because developers have limited time and resources to create innovative and high-quality products. But most of the time, it's not the fault of the developers but of the publishers, because you see, it's the publishers who decide the budget and timeline for the development of a particular game. And the publisher for 95% of anime games happens to be Bandai Namco. So, for those who didn't know, the relationship between game developers and publishers is a very important part of the gaming industry, with both parties playing distinct but independent roles. Game developers are the creative forces behind a game. They handle everything from designing and programming to creating the game's art, mechanics, and audio. Development teams can vary in size, from small indie studios to large corporations, and their job is to turn ideas into actual playable products through coding, testing, and iteration. Publishers, on the other hand, deal with the business side. They fund the development, handle marketing and distribution, and sometimes even help with testing and quality control. Because they take on most of the financial risk, they usually have the final say in the development process, including creative decisions. This setup isn't bad in itself. The problem starts when one company gains too much power, and in the world of anime games, that company is Bandai Namco. The problem is not that Bandai Namco owns all the big shonen IPs. They don't. Those IPs are owned by companies like Shueisha and Toei Animation, but they hold the licenses to make most of the games for them, and because of that they've created something close to a monopoly in anime gaming. It's not a legal monopoly, but when they are the only major player releasing Shonen Jump games, the effect on the market is almost the same, which comes with a bunch of problems. One of them is pricing. Since they are the main provider for shonen anime games, they can set higher prices than you'd see in a more competitive market. Fans are stuck. If you want to play a Dragon Ball or One Piece game, it's Bandai or nothing. Another issue is efficiency and quality. Monopolies don't have to try as hard, and Bandai Namco knows it. We can complain all we want about recycled gameplay, rushed releases and buggy launches, but at the end of the day, the games still sell. Millions of fans will buy them no matter what. And honestly, we can't blame them because, first of all, most of them are children, and secondly, if you want to play something based on your favorite anime, chances are you don't really have a choice but to buy the ones from Bandai. There's also the problem of barriers to entry. Because Bandai Namco holds so many licenses, it's nearly impossible for new developers or publishers to make competing games for the same franchises. That kills innovation and fresh ideas. And then there's the biggest issue, no real competition. When one company handles nearly all shonen anime games, they don't have to evolve. They can keep reusing the same formulas, pumping out low-effort titles, and fans will still buy them, because there simply is no alternative. Bandai Namco also has a habit of releasing games fast to ride the hype of ongoing anime. That often means games hit the shelves before they are actually ready, resulting in titles that feel unfinished, copy-pasted, or just plain underwhelming. Yes, Bandai Namco is a major force in anime gaming, but that power has come at a cost. Their approach often prioritizes quick money over lasting quality, and fans are left hoping that maybe, just maybe, the next one won't suck. I mean, at this point, Roblox makes better anime games than Bandai does. And this brings us back to the part that I think is most important for these types of games. Immersion. The lack of the things named prior make it nearly impossible for us players to feel like we are a part of the world we play in. For instance, Dragon Ball games often fail to convey the lightning-fast combat seen in the manga and anime. Playing as Goku most of the time feels slow and clunky, far removed from the dynamic action depicted in the series. Similarly, One Piece games often miss the mark on what fans love most about the series, its expansive world and sense of adventure. The manga's rich world building and the Straw Hat Pirates' freedom to explore are central to its appeal. However, many games feature linear gameplay, bland level design, and empty environments that fail to evoke the thrill of being a pirate in the One Piece universe. In the manga, Luffy and his crew sail from one cool island to the next. They encounter tons of different and interesting people and help them out, saving their lives while exploring new places. But in most games you stay on the same island, which you can't even explore properly because the movement doesn't let you, and even if you could explore it, you would find nothing in it, so you end up doing one bad side quest after another. And one notable exception to this is One Piece Unlimited Cruise. Despite its age and initial release on the Nintendo Wii, it remains a standout for fans who played it. It allows players to play as every Straw Hat member, a rarity in modern One Piece games. More importantly, it captures the essence of the series by enabling exploration of diverse islands and embarking on meaningful adventures, elements that resonate deeply with fans of the manga and anime. In a wild storm, the Straw Hat Pirates encounter a shining sphere that promises them a great treasure if they can complete 4 challenges on 4 different islands. Of course, they accept the challenge and make their way to the first one. So we already have a cool story, and while not being extremely innovative, I prefer this way more than just playing the story of the manga for the 100th time. Also, check out the drip the crew has in this game, they look so freaking cool. Hey, wait a moment Andream, is that you walking on the Thousand Sunny? Yeah it is! In this game you can not only walk on the Sunny, but you can go into every single room on it. I am not kidding, this game has the best depiction of the Thousand Sunny there is, even better than the manga itself in my opinion. So you lay anchor on the first island, which is based off Skypia, but it's not actually the same island. And even though most wouldn't consider this game an open world one, the level design is so well made. It is so much fun to explore the different islands. And the levels aren't just empty, you get cool enemies, puzzles and jump runs everywhere. So exploration never becomes boring. Also, there's a crafting system where you can collect ingredients in the wild or from bosses and give them to Usopp to craft you something, to Sanji so he can cook for you, which permanently increases your HP and stamina, or to Chopper so you can make healing potions and stuff. And while I'm at it, Zoro can cut bamboo and other stuff with his swords, Nami can steal items from enemies, Robin can hit multiple targets at once with her devil fruit, Frankie can build tunnels, bridges and ladders so you can get to new places, and Brook can run on freaking water. Every Straw Hat speciality is portrayed and used in such a creative way that, combined with the fact that you can switch between them at any given time, just makes you feel like you're really exploring with the whole crew. You can also fish many different things, which Luffy and Usopp do very often in the show, and you get different fish at different fishing spots. And if you fish at the Sunny, you actually have a chance at encountering a Sea King. Apart from catching fish, you can also use a net to catch insects, which you might need to craft medicine or weapons. And if you catch an insect or a fish, you get a custom reaction from the character that did, matching their personality perfectly. When you walk around the islands, you'll notice these weird, muddy looking guys that can transform into all sorts of enemies the Straw Hats have encountered on their adventures. That also has a lore reason. You see, in the middle of those 4 islands, there's this giant tree that saves data about the Straw Hat Pirates' adventures and recreates their enemies. And not only minor ones, the bosses essentially work the same way. They hatch out of these weird cocoons, which transform into all of the important people of the One Piece world. From other pirates like Eustace Captain Kidd, to Emperors of the Sea like Edward Newgate, up to admirals like Kizaru. Also, these boss fights are sometimes kinda hard, which is highly welcomed in my book. I am generally of the opinion that games nowadays, and especially anime games, have become too easy because developers make these games either for children or they underestimate us players. Anyways, this game has so much more that I could talk about in depth, from phenomenal bosses that use the abilities portrayed in the manga extremely well to really creative puzzles and scenarios. But I will leave that for you to explore. Also, as I mentioned earlier, there's a second part, which is not really a second part. You know, it's a continuation of the first game, but the graphics and soundtrack are the same, and they feel like they could be on one disc. But I think they split them because of storage space reasons, I don't know. Fun fact about this game, it took me a whole year as a kid to beat the final boss. Partly because of the difficulty, but for the most part it was because 12-year-old me just sucked at video games. And when I finally beat him, I had this crazy endorphin rush to my brain that made me feel more alive than after beating Melania in Elden Ring after 150 tries. Let's see how long I need this time. I hope it doesn't take another 12 months. The only thing that could have made this game better in my eyes, apart from a remake with better graphics and controls,
Please, Bandai,
would have been a nice multiplayer mode. It does have a couch co-op where you can play 1 versus 1, but I mean a multiplayer where you can explore with a friend. Which brings me to the final reason these anime games just aren't worth it most of the time. The multiplayer. Let's face it, multiplayer in anime games is a huge letdown most of the time. And it is so sad that even though most anime revolve around a band of friends trying to do shit like save the world, there is little to no effort in making a good co-op anime game. The issue with most multiplayer modes is that the base game typically only features 1v1 arena fights due to the limited time and budget, and that's it. And even when an anime game attempts to step out of its comfort zone, the lack of resources becomes painfully obvious. These single-player issues inevitably affect the multiplayer experience, leaving us with nothing more than 1v1 battles 99% of the time. Sure, I like myself a good 1v1 match in Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm 4, but it's so frustrating knowing there's so much more potential for co-op gameplay. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, for instance, is a decent attempt at offering more. It includes cool features like doing side quests together, fighting raid bosses too powerful to defeat alone, and even a tabletop game mode. And while it's not the pinnacle of what anime multiplayer games could be, at least it made an effort and somewhat succeeded. So, to summarize everything we talked about in this video, anime games mostly suck because of tight release schedules paired with a low production budget, which is mostly the fault of the publishers, aka Bandai Namco. This leads to the games being low in quality and uncreative, which in return makes us unable to immerse ourselves in them. In addition, the rise of the mobile industry made these games look more like soulless merchandise and cash grabs, which is partly because of the nature of the mobile game industry and partly because of the gacha system that emerged from it. And lastly, there is zero to no effort in integrating a good multiplayer system into these games, which makes them very short-lived because there just isn't a reason to keep playing them after completing the story. Also, something I only touched on briefly, which doesn't really have to do with how good the games themselves are, but is still really shameless if you take into consideration the things we've talked about: pricing. For whatever fucking reason, these publishers have the audacity to overprice these games so fucking hard. I mean, yeah, Dragon Ball games usually drop to around $15 a year after release, especially when they are on sale. But when Jump Force came out, it costed 70 euros. And I finished the game after 3 days of not even grinding it that hard. I can't be the only one who thinks these games deserve to only cost $30 max most of the time. I mean, for $70 you could get Elden Ring with the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC when they are on sale. Play it, it's awesome. Now, after everything we've talked about, I actually want to give you guys a list of anime game ideas that bear a lot of potential in my opinion, just so you can get a feeling on what anime games could be like in a perfect universe. A Dragon Ball action game in the style of Black Myth Wukong. A high quality action game in the Dragon Ball universe like Black Myth Wukong would be mind-blowing, with cinematic boss battles, fast-paced combat and a beautiful open world that brings iconic sagas to life like never before. A One Piece open world game. Imagine being a pirate, marine or revolutionary in an One Piece game where you can assemble your own crew, go bounty hunting and battle other crews at sea or on different islands, similar to Sea of Thieves with a potential multiplayer. You could also take over territories, join the 7 warlords or the 4 emperors and much more. Really, One Piece probably bears the most amount of potential when it comes to video games, but all they did with it was mid. A Berserk Souls-like game by From Software. A Berserk game inspired by Dark Souls. Do I need to say more? The Berserk games suck even harder than the CGI anime does. A JoJo Persona-style RPG by Atlas. A Persona-esque turn-based RPG based on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure would be so epic, especially since Persona is already super inspired by JoJo in the first place.
You never see it coming.
A Demon Slayer Neo-style game by Team Ninja. Imagine Demon Slayer reimagined in the style of Neo or maybe even Sekiro. The fast-paced sword-focused combat would fit perfectly. An Elden Ring type game for Made in Abyss. A dark and atmospheric Made in Abyss game inspired by Elden Ring is what the franchise deserves. But instead, we got this. An Attack on Titan game by Insomniac Games. Given their experience with dynamic movement mechanics, Insomniac could deliver an incredible dynamic Spider-Man style Attack on Titan game. And last but not least, a high school DD fighting game in the style of Super Smash Bros. Let's be honest, we all want a Super Smash Bros. Style high school DD fighting game where we can finally smash Diaz, no pun intended. And before I wrap this video up, I want to give you folks some recommendations on which anime games to play and which ones to stay away from. Pokemon games, Gen 1 through 5. Recommend. I know. Considering the definition of anime games that I established at the beginning of the video, the Pokemon games are not real anime games, because they do not adapt any anime or manga, but instead always release before their respective anime season. But I still wanted to include them in this video because I just think you can't make a video about anime games without at least mentioning the Pokemon games once. The Pokemon games have continued to improve with each generation, with Gen 3, 4 and 5 being the peak of the franchise in my opinion. They continuously tried to add new concepts into each new generation and most of the time they succeeded. The story kept getting better and better and so were the Pokemon. Pokemon games, Gen 6 through 9. Don't recommend. Unfortunately, Game Freak couldn't keep it up. The switch from 2.5D to 3D, which they weren't accustomed to, paired with all the new projects they worked on simultaneously, led to the main games and the other projects to lower in quality. Each passing gen has more boring Pokemon, the legendaries don't have the same aura they had back in the day, and the games just feel unfinished. Dragon Ball Z, Budokai Tenkaichi 3. Recommend. This game is a staple for Dragon Ball fans, and that has a reason. The story mode is really well made, and it's one of the rare games where you can play the story of Dragon Ball Classic as well, which I really appreciate, because I love Dragon Ball Classic. And the What If saga, which, as the name suggests, shows us what if scenarios, is such a cool concept. I especially love the scenario where Spike the Devilman from Dragon Ball Classic fucking obliterates Frieza and his father. Also, the combo possibilities in this game are practically endless, so fighting doesn't get boring ever. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. Recommend. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I like this game. It was my first PS4 game ever, and to be honest, there are little bad things to say about it in my opinion. The story is really original, so you don't just play the normal Dragon Ball story for the 50th time. Also, the fact that you can make your own character, pick your race, choose a master and learn the moves of all the different characters of the Dragon Ball universe makes the fighting in this game really diverse. Apart from the things which I already said I like about this game, like the countless multiplayer options, are the overworld which has elements of all the places the Dragon Ball world features, and the fact that you can have fun with this game for a very long time. Dragon Ball Fighter Z. Recommend. This game is just great. It's an old school 2D 1v1 fighting game, but done on such a high level. Also, the movement restrictions caused by the 2D aspect should normally make it really hard for it to feel like a dynamic game, but it kinda doesn't. On the contrary, this game probably is the most dynamic out of all the games we've talked about until now. One Piece Unlimited Cruise 1 and 2. Recommend. I think I've talked enough about this game. If you have a Nintendo Wii or 3DS, I would recommend you play this game, but I wouldn't spend money on a console just to play it. Alternatively, you can just play it on an emulator. One Piece Pirate Warrior series. Don't recommend. I'm gonna be honest with you, I never really got why so many people are obsessed with this boring ass game. In this game series, you are a One Piece character and fight a lot of marines. That's it. I mean, yeah, playing it is a great stress reliever, but come on, this game series isn't that good. Naruto, Rise of a Ninja and Naruto, The Broken Bond. Recommend. These games, while unfortunately being exclusive to the Xbox 360, are everything I could want from a Naruto game. They are like the One Piece Unlimited Cruise equivalent to Naruto games. Both have a beautiful and dynamic open world, which have many traps and obstacles that you can only spot and bypass using specific characters and their abilities, which makes you feel like a real ninja. You can go on expeditions and take all of the important characters from the classic saga of Naruto with you, and every character has their own speciality and interacts differently with the environment. And when fighting, you literally have to do the finger movements with your thumbsticks, which is so cool in my opinion. Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm series. Recommend? To be honest, this game series is pretty good, but I have marked it as only okay because it kept downgrading game after game. First one was open world, second and third were linear level-based games, which is not a bad thing per se. I really do enjoy linear or level-based games over open world games sometimes, but for a game where the characters you're playing should be jumping from tree to tree and building to building, this was a huge downgrade in my eyes. Fourth one didn't even have a map, except the Boruto mode, which, let's be honest, who wants to play that? But the boss fights, the cutscenes and the fighting system might be the best out of every anime game I've played so far. Yu-Gi-Oh! Tag Force series, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Games in general, recommend. The Tag Force series is a series of 6 Yu-Gi-Oh! Games for the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation Portable. The first 3 covered the GX saga and the last 3 the 5D saga. These were the first games that introduced the 2 vs 2 battling system into Yu-Gi-Oh! Games, and they did such a good job in doing so. In this game, you'll play as a self-made character who lives in Slifer together with the protagonists of the series. You have a clock in the corner that tells you the time. That's really important, because you have to be at specific places at specific times. For example, the classes at the academy begin at exactly 8 o'clock. You can make friends with the characters from the series until they like you so much that you can ask them to be your partner for the 2 vs 2 duels. And after 90 days, there's a tournament to take part in. Yu-Gi-Oh! Games in general are very good because it doesn't take too long, nor is it too expensive to make one. Yet the immersion is very high most of the time, because you're literally playing said card game they play in the series. But this one gets bonus points for being extremely innovative and implementing creative concepts. The Attack on Titan games. Don't recommend. They are just boring and could have been a lot better if produced by developers like Insomniac Games, who made the recent Spider-Man games. Fists of the North Star, Lost Paradise. Recommend. To be honest with you guys, I did not play this game, but I did play Yakuza 0 and it is one of my favorite games of all time. And this is basically a Fist of the North Star game in the style of the Yakuza series made by the same developers, Ryuga Gotoku Studio, so yeah, I bet it's awesome. Demon Slayer, Hinokami Chronicles. Don't recommend. Yeah, you've probably guessed it, but I wouldn't recommend this game. It's not bad, not at all, but for the love of God, this game is not worth $60 of your hard-earned money. But if you're a huge Demon Slayer fan and happen to find it on sale, yeah, you can buy it, I guess. I know it's a bit unfair that I recommend the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm series, but not the Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles. But the difference is that Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm Legacy goes on a $15 sale pretty often, which includes all 4 Ultimate Ninja Storm games, with the first 3 being remastered, plus you get all the DLCs. For $15, I think this is a banger investment. My Hero Academia, Black Clover, Jujutsu Kaisen and games of other popular anime that have a development time of about 3 weeks and are just there to milk money out of big franchise hypes, don't recommend. Anime crossover games like Jump Ultimate Stars, J-Stars Victory vs. Plus and Jump Force, don't recommend. These are the type of games that are the best thing ever in your dreams. But when you play them in reality, your disappointment is unmeasurable and your day is ruined, because you realize the developers had to spend all of their money on the licenses for all the various anime that they had about $20 left to make the rest of the game. Almost every anime mobile game. Don't recommend. Gacha games. Ultra don't recommend. Looking back on everything we've discussed, the future of anime games might seem bleak. However, we shouldn't give up hope because there are always exceptions. One such exception is the game Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. This game is the perfect Dragon Ball experience. Just from watching the trailers, I could tell that gameplay-wise, it has the potential to be the best the anime gaming industry has to offer. The movements look incredibly dynamic, the combos appear diverse and engaging, and bringing back concepts from Budokai Tenkaichi 3, like the What If saga, is a brilliant move. I am so hyped for this game and I can't wait. It was shit. As you can tell, I wrote the script a year ago when the game wasn't even out yet and it was shit. Okay, maybe it wasn't shit, but it was clearly not as good as everyone expected it to be, and 3 months after release, everyone pretty much forgot the game even existed, so yeah. But hey, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, leaving a comment and subscribing to the channel. It really means a lot to me. If you want to see more content like this, I've actually uploaded another video alongside this one. These are my first 2 YouTube videos and I hope to create many more in the future. One last thing, I have an Instagram page where I post my art. If you're interested, feel free to check it out. Alright, that's enough self-promotion. I want to know what your favorite anime game is and why. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.